So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Over the next couple of weeks, and probably even more, we're going to be hosting a series of conversations with builders, with operators who have used AI and tools to make their lives better. And I think the biggest thing I want from this is to really showcase how non-engineers and non-technical people can use tools to boost their productivity, to make them better founders, better builders, and better operators. And so for this episode, I'm going to be speaking to Jake Handy, and he's going to be showcasing exactly how to boost your productivity as a non-engineer using Cursor AI. Cursor AI has been all the rage over these past few months and even more. But the thing is that a lot of these people who use Cursor AI are engineers, they're developers, and it's been challenging for a lot of non-technical people to learn about this tool for their own purposes. So this episode is going to be focused on how do you use Cursor AI as a non-coder to be more productive, to be more useful and valuable in the workplace, and ultimately to level you up. Hopefully this episode is valuable for you. If you do like it, subscribe and like it and share it with your friends. And then finally, a lot of this content is going to be available on the newsletter. So I highly encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter, share with your friends, because we not only produce podcasts, but we write articles, we write newsletters, and everything associated with technology and how to develop yourself in this new age of AI. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jake Handy. Jake, thanks for jumping along. I know that, a lot of people are sort of like, thinking about how AI is becoming more useful for them. Cursor is one of those tools, right? Even like Windsurf. And for me, I thought it would be great for you to come on and just demonstrate a little bit about how, I don't know, like non-technical people can use Cursor, because I think, there's a great bunch of people out there who are technically minded engineers, developers, who know sort of the ins and outs of how to use these tools. But it's one thing to show that to a different type of audience. And that's what I want to do with these types of videos, is to get more non-technical people interested in not just AI, but how to use AI practically in their work area, in their workspaces, and also in like on a personal level. So tell us about what are we going to be learning today, but also what's your take on why you wanted to do this as well?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go backwards. I'll start with the why. So I wrote an article about using Cursor, like you're saying, or Windsurf, or even VS Code with plugins for non-coding work. These are pretty technical platforms. We'll see in a sec. They're pretty intimidating. Even when I was kind of starting using them, it's a lot to handle. There's tons of screens for all sorts of stuff. And so the purpose of the article that I wrote, the Modern AI Workspace, which I published it's like 3 months ago now, I think it was in April, was to use technical products like Cursor, essentially coding platforms for, like you're saying, non-coding work. The reason why is because for myself, I'm a product manager by my day job, and so I was finding that the most effective way to use essentially AI agents or even just kind of conversationally AI bots was actually within these platforms like Cursor, which is kind of weird because people might expect, "Oh, I'll just go to ChatGPT and do it," which I do for a lot of stuff as well. But I was finding if I was trying to generate scripts or even just like longer form, draft content, that going back and forth with ChatGPT and then wherever I was going to publish it, or if I needed to connect it to something else, like an API or something, it was just a pain to conversationally do that within a platform like ChatGPT. So weirdly, Cursor kind of became the place where I was doing that. So I would have basically my work folder, which would have all my documents, all my CSVs for data and for data analysis in there, and I could just point Cursor at that and say, "Hey," talking to the agent, which we'll show in a sec, say, "Hey, go look at my data, or go look at my all these things that I've written, all these PRDs, product docs, and write me a new one or draft, or give me some analysis on like all the PRDs I've written for the past year, things like that." And it was amazing to me how efficient it was because it's built for coding, so it knows kind of the ways of navigating through files and the ways of analyzing these files as if it was analyzing code and going through code. And so it's just such a kind of perfect fit for that kind of stuff that people just don't think about because it's not, if I go to my computer to write a PRD, I'm not going to typically open up VS Code. I'm going to open up Notion or Google Docs or something. And so this was kind of a way, I'm a more technical product manager, so there's a bit of a learning curve for sure to start using it. But I do think, at least currently, this could change. I'm sure more products will come out that are more non-coder friendly. But for now, I think it is the best way to do a lot of this stuff and to really embrace AI agents, which are becoming more and more asynchronous and more popular. And so my purpose in writing that article was, after discovering this on my own in my own product world, was to say, like, hey, like, anybody can do this. A social media manager can use this kind of technique to analyze all their social files and generate new posts. Project managers can use this for all sorts of things, for agile sprint management, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And I wanted to help people kind of get over that hump of, oh, well, this is a technical coding piece of software. How could I possibly use this for social media management? And I wanted to show them how they could do that. So this is a fake workspace I set up. Again, here's your folders. I'm going to show you, before we get into this fake space, here's a little tease, how to essentially set up one of these. So how you would set up a non-coding workspace, I would say, is go here, whether you're in cursor, whether you first open it up. If you're in cursor already, you can go here and say new window. If you open cursor for the first time, this is what you'll see off the get-go. So this screen is the same regardless. And what you're going to want to do is, I think, kind of a side bit, I think eventually they're going to add a button here that says new project. This is kind of a holdover from VS Code where you have to open up a project. But for now, the way to start a new project is go to open project, and then anywhere in your directory, maybe in your Google Drive, if you have a doc that's like, all my marketing files are here, or if you have a folder that says, here's all my social media files. Pretend that, you don't. So you're going to start a fresh project. So let's say that I'm a product manager. So here's Jake's product files. And let's pretend everything in here is my product files. So I got all my PRDs, I've got all my analysis, market research. So pretend that I went to my directory and I said, open my handy marketing folder. All it'll do is open up what you see here. So this is going to be your directory. Everything in that directory will be here. These are 4 other folders. In a README, you can ignore that for now. So here's my campaign performance files. Here's my client docs, project timeline, all sorts of stuff. These are all in Markdown, but it can read pretty much anything. So don't stress about the format of it. Markdown's best if you have a choice, but it doesn't really matter. And then we've got our contracts, and we've got our proposals. There's no data in here. So here's what we're going to do, which I'd like to have some fake data we can work with. So here's our first agent task. So we're going to create some fake data. So all these documents are fake. Pretend they're real. Pretend I'm a marketer. Pretend we're having fun marketing. But I'm going to make some fake data, and I don't want to do it myself because it'll take a lot of time. So I'm going to say over here to my agent, first, make a folder in this directory called, say, client data. In that folder, and again, this is just sitting on top of a folder on our computer. So this is kind of the beauty of this, is you can point this at whatever you want. In that folder, create a fake CSV of data. Say, give it 200 rows. And this should look like legit client data, but fill it with whatever you want. We're going to use Claude 4 Sonnet. There's actually 2 versions of Claude 4. There's a thinking version and a non-thinking version. The thinking version takes up a little more requests. If you're doing like a really, I think how to describe when to use these. If you're doing like a really targeted task, like what you want to do, maybe you have a doc, like a contract open, and you say, I want to swap out the last paragraph with a more detailed explanation. Like, exactly what you're going to do, where you're going to do it. Claude 4 Sonnet without thinking's fine. If there's any sort of processing power needed, so here we're having it make a folder. We're also having it think of fake data. We're giving it 200 rows, which is could be considered a good bit for AI. We're going to use the thinking, so that will give it a little more juice. It basically just makes it stronger. It gives it a reasoning ability, which the other one doesn't have. So we're going to send this off, see what happens. Here's its thinking, which the other one wouldn't do. You can actually open these thoughts up, and it'll show you kind of what's going on here. Whenever there is, here's an important bit. So you'll see as you're running your agent, it'll pop up this, which has this little icon here. This means it's going to run a terminal task, which requires your approval. for security reasons, essentially. Your terminal on your computer is very important. It can do a lot of powerful things, including ruin your computer. So it's going to ask, the bot will always ask before it runs a terminal command for you to run it. Make sure you kind of read what it's doing a little bit. If you don't understand what this terminal command is that it's trying to run, put it into ChatGPT or something like that and say what's it trying to do. And that'll help you kind of diagnose. Right now, this is a command called make directory. This is just, it's going to make our folder that we asked it to make, which requires a terminal command because that's editing your kind of computer directory level stuff. You can, I do not recommend this in general. You can have these auto run. I did that exactly once a while back when I was testing all this, and it created a ton of stuff for I had like a really simple, I don't remember what it was, but I had a really simple command, and it started running a bunch of terminal tasks, and it just rapidly, you can't even read them, it's so fast, and it just ran them, and then there was like impermanable or immutable changes to my computer that I had to go back and figure it out and change them. So don't, this is stuff that you should, approve manually. Nine
Right.
times out of 10, it's going to be fine, especially with non-coding tasks. There's rarely, maybe never, a terminal command that is going to pop up here that's going to hurt your computer. So don't worry about it. And this is only, again, because I asked it to make a folder. If you're just editing files or just editing data or even analyzing data, you're not going to see terminal commands. But yeah, so we're going to keep it on ask. Never run it. You'll see it'll run in the terminal here, which created our folder over here called client data.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to create that fake data for us.
Can you specify, and I presume you can here, like, you said fake data, make it legit and all that stuff, but can you even go a step further and just say, hey, I want this type of specific fake data?
Yeah, you can specify as much as you want. And probably if I wasn't doing a demo, I would probably, and if I had like a specific a need for this, I would say, like, I wanted to have these columns and I wanted to represent X amount of people or whatever like that, for sure. Yeah, definitely be as specific, especially with data, as you can. This is getting stuck, so I'm gonna kill. You can stop anytime you're chatting with it. You can press stop if it's getting stuck, or if you're seeing that it's doing something you don't want to do. I'm gonna try and ask you just to do a 10 row file. See if this works better. So you can interrupt whatever it's doing. Everything it does before that point will persist. So we're going to still have our folder over here. And then you can continue to change what it's doing, make it do something else. There we go. That worked better. Okay, 200 was too much. So I made a 10 row file here, which put it in our client data, which if you click this, you can see our file here. So it looks like it did company name, fake emails, fake numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The last campaign ROI, nice. Like to see it. Cool. So, and then it'll explain kind of what it added here as well. So whenever it makes a file or whenever it edits a file, the agent will show you this screen here. This was a fresh file, so it's going to say new. It's also going to say plus 11, which just means it added 11 rows. If it took away rows, say I wanted to say remove that last row, don't need it, which should delete this last row here. Also, I want to mention as I'm doing this, I don't have to say anything about the file necessarily. I can be as broad as I want. I could tag the file like this. You can tag any of your files in your directory. Where's the client database? I could tag it here. Right. I don't need to do that. It's got context in this chat. It even actually has context for past chats at times. So if I just say remove the last row, it's going to know, especially because I'm using that thinking model, it's going to know what I'm talking about. So you can do that. You'll see it thinking. Also remove the last row. It's even thinking about what that row says. And then it will mix it. So here you can see -2. So it removed, there's probably a blank space, which is why it says 2. But it will say where it made edits, additions, and removals.
Cool.
Yeah. And then
Awesome.
if you edit multiple files, so say I had it add 10 fake data points and then a document as well, it'll show the data here, it'll show the document here. If you're trying to figure out, where did it edit? Like I'm in a different file and I want to know, like, oh, I edited the CSV. How do I get to it? You can just click on it and it'll drag you there as well. So you don't have to get lost.
So we've established the fact that you can use use these LLM models to create folders and create files within these folders, which is great. So data, whatever it may be. Now, one thing that and one use case would be, okay, now that we have this data and now we have all of the written reports in there, if you're a social media manager or you might have PDFs in there, I want to now be able to process and maybe like go through each of those. Like the technical word is parse, but I want to be able to go through each of those documents and maybe ask a question on like certain maybe financial
Totally.
data or certain things. What would be in terms of the this campaign, for example, what's something that we can do to sort of ask question?
Yeah, I think there's two great things we can do. Before we do that, I'm going to show
Yep.
one thing real quick.
Okay.
Down here, every time you make a change, you'll have these options down here to reject or accept. This will look a little different depending on cursor or windsurf, but it'll be rejection or exception. If you reject here, it will delete everything. So I click reject here, which I'm not going to do. It will remove everything that happened, which means that CSV file will be gone. If I accept, which I'm going to do, then it just kind of firms it up. So I'm just accepting the changes that it made. So you'll see that those green lines and red lines will disappear. That's because I approved the green lines and I approved the red lines, basically. And then you can not worry about it. My philosophy, and this differs from people to people, I think it's the best philosophy, I'm biased obviously, is every single action that you want to do, I would open up a new chat. So this action here, we could say, was creating the folder, creating the CSV. Technically two actions, but related enough. It's kind of an early request, initial request, it's fine. And so that's one action, is getting the CSV. Now that we want to do something else, or you said we're going to act on this CSV, I would open up a new thing. I get paranoid to the point where sometimes, even if I want to, like that where I deleted that row, I would open up a new line and say delete the row, just because it makes it easier to then reject and accept. You don't have to be that kind of detailed with your new chats, but be as detailed as you want, right? So I'm the kind of person that when I play,
And then also, if you wanted to go back, so say you started a new chat for that separation, right? But then it's like, oh yeah, I want to re-edit that file that I created. You can go back to the previous chat that you had.
you can, yeah. So you can go back. So you have your whole history here. You can actually
Right.
see this persists across each time you open it too. So this is when I made this workspace. I had a chat from there, which was yesterday. And so yeah, I can go back and see this whole chat and change stuff. I can even reset things. I can copy stuff. I can do whatever I want. So that chat will stay there totally forever. I just get paranoid about new chats. So it's for people that like constantly, or not anymore because everything's cloud based, but like back in the old Excel days when you would Control S every 10 seconds. It's that kind of thing. It's that essentially. So that's me. But I would also mention, while I'm here, you can press Control T to open up a second chat. The leave cursor lets you open up 3 total. Yep. So you might think, well, why would I want to do this? If you get really crazy, this will be down the road. If you get really comfortable with cursor, you can start running tasks parallel. So in parallel, so I could have it edit this database, create a new draft contract, and go search the web for something, which I'll show in a second, all at once. So you could start this, and have them running all at once. That gets a little bit crazy to manage. This kind of gets into the async agents conversation as well, which I don't think we should have right now. But just know you can run multiple chats in parallel, and you'll have different agents going all over your directory doing stuff. So, but first, let's go. So let's act on this. We're going to do a simple action first. We'll do some analysis, right? So I've got this tagged. You can tag, as I mentioned, anything. Client database. You can even tag folders. So maybe I've got 10 CSVs. I don't right now, but let's pretend I have 10 CSVs in this folder. I can tag the whole folder, right? So I could say, do some analysis across my 10 CSV files, and it would look at all of them. Also, whenever you are going through your thing here, if you click in, it's not doing it. Actually, sorry. If you start a new chat while you are viewing a file, so say you're just looking at your CSV and you want to start a new chat, it will add that context automatically. So it's assuming that you're wanting to have that new chat about this file. Ooh, forget that. You can also add multiple things. So I could add client docs. Could add client. I could have my proposals. I could tag the web, which we then make it go search the web. You can get crazy with this. But for now, let's just have the CSV, which we know is here. Let's say something we can do. add up all the numbers in my client's phone numbers and make a new chart. I'm going to say using Mermaid, which is just a software language that does charts. It shows the spread of numbers. I'm actually going to say look at all the numbers. So it's kind of a weird request, but basically I'm asking it to look at all the different numbers in these phone numbers and give me a chart that shows the spread of the amount of numbers. I'm kind of being vague here almost on purpose to see what it does. But this is not a request you'd actually have, right? But I've got 10 rows of data here, so I'm working with what I got. So it's looking at the numbers, analyzing the numbers. So here it's pulling out the numbers from each of the phone numbers. That's counting all the digits. Looking at the digit frequency. And here's our chart. So you can see
That's
that's
awesome.
pretty quick. Yeah, pretty quick. Only 10 rows of data, but even still, 5 appears a lot, of course, because in fake numbers, you got 555, which you always see, and then 0 is going to show up a bunch because it preferred zeros, I guess. Who knows? Everything else is, about even. So we would expect that. This is a bit of a weird analysis, but you can see it here. You can copy this data. I'm going to see if I can get it to save this data. Thanks. Save this chart in my data folder. Right now it's just in my chat here, right? So I want to save it so I can reference it later for my phone number needs. So it's going to do that. And now we've got that here. This is what a mermaid thing looks like. Don't worry about that. And then also says the summary here, which is nice, which I didn't ask to add, but I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So that's kind of one thing. Let's go back to our data set here. Start a new chat. And now I'm going to use the web. So we've got different names in here. I'm going to see if we can find any more information about some of our clients. These are fake clients, so we'll see. So search for the clients here on at web. I didn't specify name or company name or contact name, so it might search for both. Let's find out. When you tag at web, the agent will at times. So if I say search on the internet for clients, let's say I don't add that, and I say search on the internet for clients, it may know, and oftentimes it does. Most times it's smart enough to know, great, Jake wants me to go search on the internet. I always tag at web because that forces it to use the internet, which is just obviously more predictable. So we're going to say search for clients here on the web and find more information about them. Add this new information to a new CSV file in the folder. Let's just leave it open, see what it does. So this is its search. You can see here, these are the websites it went to. So basically, it doesn't show the exact process, but it goes to the internet, it grabs these files and then searches them, and these are the websites that it pinged. So it did grab, looks like it grabbed the company names and then it searched those on the internet. Grabbed them, search. So it went and searched again. Looked like it did like an initial search here and then it thought about it a little bit and went and searched again. Which if you open up these here, it'll actually show you the direct search results. You can click in here to see what it's looking at. Looks like there is a company named Tech Solutions, of course. So it's looking at that. And now it's searching for a few more companies, so it's still going. Web stuff, especially if you're giving it a hit list like this of 9 different things to specifically search for, can take a bit because it's going to go one by one and search through all these, which is a good thing, but it can take a little while. To do that, if I was getting bored here waiting for this is where I would go and open up a new chat and then start something else. Right, so it looks like he wanted some clarification. He said create a CSV with additional research-based columns, or add web present analysis, or create calculated enhancement columns, revenue per cycle. Let's see. I'm gonna say do number 2. I want him to find website statuses, and social media presence. So basically, because I was so vague up here, which was on purpose, just said add new information, right? He's going to say, I don't, what information does he want, right? Does he want web information? Does he want information on the company? Or does he want their website? Does he want calculated stuff? So I'm going to say, let's do number 2. Just send him back off for another journey. I do have auto search turned on. That's why you might have saw that something popped up and then disappeared. That's an option. I can't remember if it's on by default, but that just makes it so that Claude can go search without me having to do anything, which I prefer. But again, for security reasons, you might want that off. You might want it to request so that it doesn't accidentally say, "Oh, I'm going to search for malicious thing 123," right? So, all right. So it looks like he's done searching. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He searched through all of them, which is great. No results for that one. Some results for this one. And now he's making our enhanced database. Cool, and he's done. Let's see what he did. So it says most of these no direct website found, which makes sense because it doesn't exist. Limited no clear website. It says limited. Interesting. So he actually did some analysis too, which is kind of cool. So he said limited presence, limited Facebook presence, mixed reviews. Oh, cool. He did an online review. Reputation, no reviews. Mixed reviews on Angie. That's neat. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to go back in his thought process in a second and see what that is. Looks like he calculated and made up a web presence score and then gave us some notable findings. So for tech solutions, he said similar named companies found, but no exact match. Sarah Johnson found as tech media reporter, but different entity, which again makes a ton of sense. If these are real companies with real website presences, this would of course look a little different, but it's cool that he gave us all this. Let's see. So it's going to see. And he gave us a summary here of all his analysis. It's nice. I was going to see if we could tell what his web presence score is. Doesn't seem like he does. I'm going to ask just a little follow up question. What is that web presence score and how is it calculated? So composite rating that he created to quickly assess. This is very cool. Actually, I like this a lot. So basically just a quick point system. So he gave him some points depending on those 3 other columns, which then got added up, which is great. So I didn't ask him to do
I
that.
like how little information you gave it. Now, obviously, it makes sense because these names are so broad. It's like John Smith. So,
Yep.
they're not looking, well, the LLM is like saying, well, I get you what you're trying to do. And with more context, I'm just going to do additional research for you and even go through, can I find their LinkedIn, right? Can I find reviews, right? And you didn't even specify that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I gave it an overall 2.2 average, which for fake companies, I think is a pretty good, it's a pretty good score. So, yeah. So that's kind of this may seem like a lot, like there's a lot of analysis I did here, but this is the basics of what you can do, right? I'm working with one, 10 row CSV file. Imagine having, your entire company's list of CSVs that you want to go through. You might ask, of course, then how the heck, like I know that LLM models, have limited token. How is it going to process the thousands of CSV files that I have in my, company folder? That's correct. So the benefit of the agent is, especially Cursor, Windsurf also is really good at this, is the ability to search through your files. So depending on what you tell it, say you've got a folder with 1,000, like I said, 1,000 CSV files, all about book metadata. Maybe each one is a different genre of book, and it's got information about all the metadata. And you want to go through and say, hey, I want to find the most popular keywords for the horror genre. It's not going to take all 1,000 files and go, man, I got to search through all these, or I got to process all these and identify, that number. It's going to start with a search. So what it will do first is actually search your files. It'll go, great. the user wants, horror and it wants keywords. So it'll search typically for keywords. It'll search for things like horror, scary, thriller. It's intelligent enough to know kind of stuff around that. And then it will only grab the files that are related to what you're asking for and then process those, which is kind of how it currently handles that token limit. And it does it really well. So that was built because that's how search works for code bases. Is it searches through, right, that kind of stuff, and then finds what it needs to act on. But it works really well for just like a standard typical file
Yeah,
search as well.
I think this reminds me of well, that's one, that's a great optimization, but then two is in currently now, if you were to sign into ChatGPT or a Perplexity or Claude or Grok, there is this sort of like new emerging feature of workspaces, and so you're not just having a direct chat one-on-one. It's like, well, I want to be able to have a workspace where would be a specific agent for me to work against, right? So that would be maybe a marketing agent, a product manager agent, and what you're showing here is sort of like similar to that, where it's more customizable in that sense. You can choose the model that you want to use, but then you can be a bit more fancy with the files that you have. You could have CSVs, PDFs, whatever it may be, and then use the agent to be able to go through those files and then ask any question that you have as well. And I think that's the takeaway here, is that yes, we have been using CSV as sort of the example here, but it doesn't have to be CSV. It can be a PDF, could be a doc. Mostly, I assume if you are in a non-technical field, I presume most of you will be dealing with PDF documents. And then inside those documents, there'll be like tables and numbers and all that stuff. But even that can be processed by something like this, right?
Yeah, and so that's yeah. To say it a different way, the beauty of using an open-ended agent system like this is you can cross-reference stuff too, right? I don't. It's not just that I have to feed it CSVs or just PDFs, or just whatever files you've got. I could say go to my folder and do this analysis on literally everything I have, and it will process everything. It'll process the CSVs, the PDFs. You could try to find. Let's say you're searching for sentiment analysis across, again, CSVs, PDFs, Word docs, whatever, pages docs. It'll go through all of it and search it and then crunch it together, which is a big benefit as well. So
Uh,
there's not
do you
really
think
a
it would be worthwhile to talk about like connectors and, you know, I don't want to touch on MCP. Maybe that could be for another day. But what if I want to go and connect with third party services? Or do you think that's another topic?
we could touch on it quick. That gets complicated quickly. I actually think MCP is maybe the easy version of that because there's a more open-ended. I talk about this in the article. Is you can have it write like Python scripts for you that will search APIs for you, and so you can technically, like, I could, for the CSV, I could say, hey, write a Python script that scrapes the Facebook page based on the company name, right? And it will, that's really custom, right? That's maybe too custom. But it'll literally just make that script for you and then teach you how to run it. And then you could search that way. MCP is essentially the industry's attempt to solve that for people that don't really know what they're doing with the stuff, right? So it wants to give you the ability or wants to give the bot the ability to search something outside of itself, in a kind of standardized way. So I can show that really quick. We don't want to get too into it, and like you said, we could save that for another time, kind of a deep dive on that. But if you go into the options, where is my options? There's a setting called MCP tools, um, which you can add here. Actually, I wonder. I just updated this, but I guess it's still here. So this gets complicated quick. Windsurf actually has a much easier way to do this. Cursor is working on theirs, and I think they just released an update that makes it a bit easier. But basically, long story short, I won't go into the details. Like I said, we can do that some other time. But Stripe, payment processor, has an MCP server. Once you set that up here, which is a pretty easy process, but a little technical, it'll pop up here in your MCP tools. And basically, all that does is when you're in your agent chat, you can say, hey, go check Stripe. And because it has this connector set up, it will be able to actually access your Stripe account. Um, this is more for the Stripe one, especially, is more for coders, right? So people that are trying to integrate Stripe on their website instead of going through the kind of tedious process, although Stripe is pretty good. of setting that up, you can just ask your agent, like, hey, here's my Stripe account from the MCP, like, please add Stripe ability on my site, and it'll do it pretty easily. But for
Yeah,
non-coders, there's stuff for like Google Docs for like linear, so you could have it access your tickets and things like that as well. Pretty easy
yeah.
connectors.
I think we should definitely park that for another conversation because it is extremely helpful. I feel like MCPs is somewhat, it's still quite early, but I feel like it is definitely making a lot of momentum, and being able to connect outside of your machine and connect it to these third party tools. Because, if you are a PM, you're probably going to be working with like, Linear or Jira or, Monday.com, right? And being able to go through the tickets and not you have to rely on their native dashboard and be able to say, hey, I want to do custom stuff with all my project management. That would be really game changing. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely keen to explore that in another episode.
yeah, and I think a lot of people, again, we don't talk too much about it, but a lot of people say MCP is just APIs, right? Which is totally right. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing. The benefit of MCPs is just giving the APIs a structure that that the agent will understand, right? So I could go to, if I wanted to integrate an API, I could go to the bot and give it all the documentation and spend time teaching it about it. Whereas MCP just communicates kind of in the bot's native language, basically. So yes, it is an API for sure, but that's a good thing, right? That's just a more available API essentially for people that can't necessarily crunch more technical API documentation. I did want to show one more thing on the
Yep.
non-coding side, if that's cool. So I know there's a lot of text editing docs out there that people might see cursor that we're talking through now and say, oh, that's cool for data analysis and like file search. But really what I use AI for the most in my day to day is editing, the text in my docs, which this can do as well. So we're actually going to scoot this over here because I don't think we're going to use that right now, which might be blasphemous. But say here's a marketing service agreement. This is a markdown, doesn't have to be. Say I want a lot more deliverables. These deliverables sound great, but I need more. My boss keeps asking for more. So if we highlight this and go to Control K, or you can click Quick Edit here, it'll open up a little chat inline of your editor here. You can select auto. I'm going to go ahead and select Sonnet again because I think it's one of the best, especially for writing. You can edit selection, but we're going to actually just keep what we've got highlighted here. And I'm going to say add, I don't know, 5 more deliverables that my boss will love. So this lets you kind of hyper target this little section in your document, which you'll see a version of this in all sorts of AI text editing software, but this is kind of built in to Cursor, and this will edit it right here and add our things, which is great. So these sound very obtuse, which means, the boss will love it. And you can approve it or kill it. You can also, if you don't like this little inline thing, if it bothers you for whatever reason, if you do that same thing, highlight it, and then click add to chat or do Control L or Command L on Mac, it'll actually add that context over here in your thing. So it grabbed, you can see the file name here, but it actually just grabbed those few lines since I just said add those, which you can start getting weird here, right? So we were doing our CSV analysis. Maybe we want to factor in these deliverables. So grab those, put them in the chat and say, hey, look at my clients and tell me which of these deliverables they would like the best based on our social analysis. So this is crossing a lot of things. Let's see how it does. He's thinking. Cool. So here's our cross analysis, you could say. So what this did is I grabbed these, I put them in here. This is the chat where we took I'll go way back up. um, Way back up, where we took our CSV file and said do social analysis, where it added our score and all this information on their social presence. And I said, cool, these are these deliverables from this, wellness spa contract. Which of these clients are going to like these the best? Having it do some thinking on its own. And so it's great. A top priority, fitness, ROI, sunshine, blogs per month. So one of these is, first one is social media posts. It's saying we should do that for coastal fitness because they have a 1 out of 10 web presence. That makes a lot of sense, right? So it wants us to do social posts for those with the lowest presence. Most of these have low presence because they're fake, but those had the lowest presence. blogs per month said, do tech solutions, positions as industry experts because it's, technology industry. So this did some good analysis, I think, actually on this fake data. And again, this is tip of the iceberg. Like, get creative, just throw whatever you want at it, see what it does. Sometimes it'll fail, but most of the time you'll get some really interesting stuff out of it.
Yeah, I think this is been great because, you're kind of limited by the general tools that these providers are giving you on their sort of like their dashboard when you log into ChatGPT or whatever, and being able to have another way to use the same tools, the same LLM models, but then have a different interface and be able to, okay, bring in different types of docs, being able to select certain types of snippets from the document and just focus on that. You can re-edit files. I think this will save a lot of time for a lot of people. This will definitely boost their productivity. And look, hey, yes, it does look like there's a bit of a learning curve, but I think it's not too bad, honestly. And I think I've started to show this to friends who are non-engineers, and they are starting to get a feel for it because there's no coding involved. It's just familiarizing yourself with the environment, right? The UI and everything like that. And I think that's not too difficult at all.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned kind of early on, the stuff's going to change. Like, Cursor's watching how their users are using it. I'm sure they're aware that there's a non-coding audience that's growing for this kind of stuff. So they're going to start. I wouldn't be surprised if like a official Cursor for non-coders pops up that is just the chat bar and a file directory and kind of skips all the technical stuff. And Google's working on. Google has their own, like in Google Drive and Google Docs, they have a sidebar. It's just not as sophisticated yet, right? They're working on it. So this stuff is coming for non-coders, but in the meantime, this is here for non-coders, right? So you can use this now and get really used to it before it starts to take off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Base, so how do people get in contact with you if they want to learn more, read more of your articles? Where's the for that?
Yeah, so for AI stuff, definitely my Substack, which is handyai.substack.com. Check it out. Let me know what you think. My website in general, jakehandy.com. If you just need to contact me for whatever reason, is probably the best way to do that. You can also check me out on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever. Jake Handy's a relatively unique name. I think there's a lawyer as well who's got it, but if you just search me, I'm out there.
It's also nice that you can rebrand your last name as Handy AI
Yeah,
in
the
another
logos,
sense.
and yeah, it's easy. It's easy. I got a gift.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jake. Really appreciate it. And then hopefully, yeah, let's tee up some future conversations because I think we can go down the rabbit hole in this, and I think there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of people who will get a lot of value from this. But I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right.